Hello, and welcome to Behind the Booth, sponsored by Nerd Night News. I'm your host, Terry Mayo, and I'm joined today by the yin to my yang, Mr. Rick Tastic. Today we're going to be talking to comic book creator Lee Jiles. Lee is an independent comic publisher at About Time Comics, and he's the creator of Godsend and In-Flight Service. He currently has a book called Red Scare that's live on Kickstarter right this minute. I cannot wait to get started with this sweet southern gentleman, but before we do, I want to remind everyone to please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss an episode. Alright, let's talk to that Georgia Peach himself, Mr. Lee Jiles. Alright, and welcome back to Behind the Booth, presented by Nerd Night News. We have Terry, Rick, and then joining us today we have Lee Jiles. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
I don't. Okay.
It is, yes, Lee Jiles.
Lee Jiles. I'm so bad at butchering names, you would be surprised, but I got it right this time.
Yes, yes, I do.
Bad at butchering names or excellent
Yeah.
at butchering names?
What was that?
I said bad at butchering names or excellent at butchering names.
I guess it depends on the spin I put on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But Lee, you have a book right now that's out on Kickstarter. It's going to be 7 days left by the time this is hitting airwaves.
Yes.
But if you could do us a favor, just kind of tell us a little bit about what the book is.
Okay, sure. The book is called Red Scare. This is the first issue. It's a action horror book. It's set in the near future where some things have happened, and there was a war where Russia invaded the United States and basically won the war. And so now we're following the story of a rogue Russian soldier named Anatoly Severov. And at the beginning of the book, he escapes the Gulag and is going to find his family. And then along the way, he runs into some traveling, unlikely traveling partners, and that kicks the story off. So,
very cool, very cool. Yeah, I was drawn to the art that Flavio did, but also just the I'm an avid horror fan, which Rick is not. But I do love one of the first horror movie I ever saw was a zombie movie. So when I saw that there was that kind of flavor to it,
right.
I was instantly drawn. And then a child of the 80s, Red Dawn was big in my life. So I was like, well, this is perfect for me. Why didn't
we're on the same page kind of there. So
there we go.
Man, that's the thing with me is I've never really been a horror guy, but I just had worked on kind of our flagship title at About Time Comics is Godsend, and it's like a supernatural hero, or this, heroes battling demons and the modern incarnation of the Templar Knights and things like that. So after 6 issues, for me being independent, that was several years, not just 6 months. And so I was ready to do something different, and I just came up with this idea. And I started talking with Scott Wilkie, who's the writer, and he actually has written several things. The Legend of Everett Forge, his steampunk western, we published that for him at About Time Comics. And he's written several things for Bad Bug Media, which is kind of a new independent publisher that's putting out some really good books right now. But we wanted to make it like, I think a lot of the better horror series and in books, you have to have good characters, and you have to care about these characters, and the zombies are obviously a big part of it. But if nobody cares about the lives of these characters and what they're going through, they're not going to really care about the zombies. So
right.
But having said that, we did want to do something a little bit different with the zombies, because there again, everybody has done a zombie book or a zombie story or something. So my original idea, which is still what happens, is when the Russian soldiers attacked, once they were killed, they had been infected so that they came back as zombies. So basically they had to be killed twice, and so then Scott comes up with the idea, since they knew this was planned, let's make it so that these soldiers were experimented on and tested on, and they actually had their skulls covered with metal. So, the usual headshot that everybody does with zombies, kind of like the way to kill them. So
leave it to those writers.
Exactly. So
That is so cool. So Scott, yeah, I've seen a couple things that Scott has written. So I was going to ask what kind of working relationship, because I know that you were like the creator. You came up with the story.
Yeah.
How did y'all collaborate on actually putting this on page?
Well, I learned several years ago that I can create stories and I can write stories, but I'm terrible at writing an actual script and adding in the dialogue and that kind of thing for a comic. And so I started with Godsend. I worked with a writer named Peter McLeod in Australia, and it was just one of those things where the stuff that he added in, I was like, why didn't I think of that? Because we really clicked, so it worked out well. So a lot of times I consider myself as not the writer. I'm the creator / work on the story, and then the writer actually puts all those puzzle pieces together. It makes sense, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that way with Scott. I just went to him with Red Scare and asked him if he'd be interested, and he said, yeah, it sounded cool. And at the time, he was working on The Legend of Everett Forge. I think his last issue, not last issue, but the last issue he finished was issue 3. And I was working on Godsend number 6. And this was like 3 years ago. So it just we talked about it and it kind of got put on the back burner. And then we finally got to a point where we were able to get it all together and get it going. And it just, everything just kind of clicked, I think. So. Very
cool. Again, one of those things where life aligns and
exactly. Yep. Exactly.
And beauty happens. The obstacles, I guess, kind of flowing into that thought of putting a independent comic book out. There's so many obstacles there. So yes. What would you say, I guess, as a publisher / creator, and you don't give yourself enough credit, but if you're putting words on paper, you're a writer, my friend. So as all those three, what would you say is the biggest obstacle that you have to overcome to actually get an independent comic book out there?
Well, for me, I have 2 daughters, and they're now one's about to turn 16 in a few days, and 14. And let's see, we started publishing in I think like January of 2013. So they were much smaller then, but, and then I work a full-time job. So, you know, you add family in and work in and being tired. And, sometimes that stuff bothers your creativity too a bit. But just finding the time, that was a big obstacle. And then second for me is money. And I've never done a Kickstarter before. I've always paid for everything out of pocket. And so, which I did with Red Scare as well, except for the fact that I finally decided, hey, let's do a Kickstarter and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, those are my things, time and money. I think that's not just with indie comics, but I think that's with a lot of things, you know. But luckily I have, you know, found great people to work with, knock on wood. I've, ever since I've been publishing, I think I got stiffed one time and it was only like for $40. So,
wow.
I've worked with great, not just talented people, but really good people. And I think that's a huge thing too. You have to kind of screen the people you work with and kind of get to know them before you get into this with them, because man, I've seen some horror stories about people that have got really, you know, done wrong. And
yeah. Well, like you're saying, some of these projects last years of your life. So
exactly,
you become family with those people that you're working on a book with. You really do.
Very much so. Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So what do you think what have you done to kind of surround yourself? Because that's impressive that you've only been stiffed for $40 once. So there must be a method to the madness. You said you did a screening process. What does that look like?
Well, I mean, for me, it's just, I don't know. You know, you get the gut feeling sometimes just talking to somebody, like with Peter McLeod. You know, I mean, you're sitting here, and Godsend was like my very first real creation that I poured a lot of time and energy into, and in building the world and the story. And Peter and I actually were slated to work together on this has been back in like 2008, I think, on a story together. He was a writer and I was an artist. And for this other company, I can't remember the name of the company. It was an independent company. And needless to say, all that kind of fell through. But we had began talking then, and I liked his writing style. I liked the stuff that I'd read that he had written. So we just kind of started talking and got to know each other. And like I said, sometimes you just get a feeling, you know. And so I was finally at a point where I was confident enough to say, here's all my stuff. Would you want to collaborate on this with me, you know? And thank God that all worked out. And And it's been the same way. Oski Yanez is the artist on Godsend. He's been there for all 6 issues. He's in Argentina. I've never met him, obviously, in person, but man, a great guy and just so easy to work with. And just, you know, if I need something edited, he's just like, okay, I'll get it, you know, no problem. And it's just worked that way. Scott Wilkie actually came to me with The Legend of Everett Forge and asked me if I'd be interested in publishing it. And I thought the book was really good. And he said he was having trouble finding a publisher. And I didn't see why, because it was a really great for any book, but for an independent, because I've seen some garbage, and I know you guys probably have too in the independent world out there. And it kind of was the same thing. We worked together, and you know, I think you got to understand. And for me, you know, having a full-time job and a family, I don't depend on independent comics to pay my bills. And I think that's a big part of it. And if you find other people that are in that same kind of boat as you are, that aren't stressed out about trying to make sure they have to pay their light bill next week, so they need to be paid for this, that, or the other, you know, I think that's been a big part of it. So Scott and I were on the same page with all of that kind of stuff too. And it's just been, I don't know, it's just a lot of gut feeling, I think, and getting to know people, treat people the way you want to be treated. You know, that's my big thing. And sometimes you just get a bad vibe from somebody. If you contact them and they seem kind of wishy-washy or, you know, I don't know, and you just kind of have to terminate that. That's from the get-go, I think, sort of. So,
how did those kind of people stay in business when it seems like the comic industry is such a heavily relationship-based economy?
That's a good question. I don't know. I wonder how a lot of people do it. Because, like I said, for me, it's been stress-free. I mean, I can't. The one guy that stiffed me, I had hired him to do a Godsend pinup, and he did the artwork for it, and just kind of a rough sketch of it, and then he sent that to me, and then he disappeared. And he's not even on social media. I don't know where he went. So, I mean, that was like.
He struck gold with that $40 and then left.
Exactly. Yeah. And, he showed me. He completely changed his identity and got off the internet. That $40 set him up.
We changed someone's life there, Lee. So,
yeah.
But it's glad I can help.
Yeah. I wanted to be able to give you before we let you go a chance to kind of do your elevator pitch for Red Scare. So we were at a convention somewhere, and we came up and picked up Red Scare and asked you what it was about. Now's your chance. Okay.
Red Scare is the story of rogue Russian soldier Anatoly Severov, who has escaped the Gulag in a zombie-ravaged post-war, post-apocalyptic America on the way to find his family. He's being pursued by the Russian military, and the world is ravaged with zombies everywhere. And on his way, he meets these 2 escaped prisoners of war, and through some circumstances, they team up, and that's where our story starts.
That is awesome. Well, like I said,
sounds epic.
Yeah, right. It's the book is beautiful. Flavio did amazing work on it.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Yeah, judging on the stuff that Scott has written before, I know that the story is going to be stellar as well. So, rooting for you. If people want to reach out to you on social media, what would be the best way that they could find you?
Well, you can find me on Facebook, just Lee Jiles. You can find AboutTimeComics.com. We also have About Time Comics on Facebook, Instagram. You know, I'm on Twitter also. I don't use it a whole lot because I don't really understand it, but
that's a perfect answer.
Exactly. I mean, I try, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But
yeah, that's okay. That's all right. All right. Well, Lee, thank you very much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. I had a blast with you, man, and looking forward to the book.
Well, thank you both for having me. I really had a good time too, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
Yeah, thank you, Lee.
Thank you,
sir.
See you guys.
Look at that, you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you know someone that you'd like to see on the show, send us a comment down below so we can make that magic happen. And while you're down there, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell. Because why not? And since you're here already, check out some more of these Nerd Night News videos. Enjoy!